It's still October 25th, 2022. Hope everybody out there still having a good day today. Start by saying hit that subscribe button if you haven't. We're still trying to hit 500 subs. Talk to you a little bit today about crooked auto shops. You know, even in small towns this happens. I'm sure some of y'all are from bigger towns and you've heard horror stories of, you know, taking your car in for oil change and then you get in your car back and they tell you that you owe, you know, hundreds of dollars because they found all this stuff wrong with it, or you take it in for something simple and it winds up costing you a lot of money and you can't prove that they actually did the work or something like that. What I'm talking about here, even in our small town, my old lady took her car to get some tires put on it. Well, while it was in there, the guy who was changing the tires, which is the mechanic shop and a tire shop, came in and told her, you need to have new CV axles, you need to change your wheel bearings, you need to do a lot of work on the front end of the car. And of course it panicked her, you know, she's like, because they were telling her car was fixing, just wheels were going to fly off going down the road. Well, she didn't get it done that day, but she got her tires changed and she come home and she told me what was said, and I'm like, something's not right with that, because just last year you changed your wheel bearings and everything else, and plus if it is, and they quoted her a price of the work around $500 to do it, but she chose not to do it right then. Well, when she got home, we were talking about it, and we said we just changed the CV axles, you know, like a year ago, and we put new wheel bearings in last year. I actually put the whole hub assembly in, not just the bearings, because it was cheaper to do the whole hub assembly compared to pressing out the bearings and putting them in. Well, I thought something's not right with that. You know, something's not right. Well, we didn't drive the car that night. Well, the next day we drove it about 100 miles. Going where we went, it did good, but on the way coming back, the front end started just knocking and banging, sounding like the front end was fixing to come out from under the car. And I'm like, all right, something's not right with this. And let me back up to where we had changed the wheel bearings. When I changed the whole spindle and everything, you know, I told her, I said, we need to put new ball joints in this. I showed her how they were kind of getting bad, because on a Ford vehicle, that year model, they're not greasable. You cannot grease any of the suspension, so they squeak and pop and stuff. Well, I told her, I said, it's almost like what they did was back the hub nut off a turn or two to, you know, make it start making noise. Well, we ordered the ball joints and stuff because I already knew it needed ball joints changed. And she called another shop that she has used before and went down there to get it worked on, and hadn't told them nothing except for, I'm bringing the parts, how much do you charge in labor to put them on, this and that. Hadn't told her nothing. Well, she takes the car down there to the shop, and the man calls back about an hour or two later after she drops it off and says, ma'am, we fixed the popping noise. Your hub nuts were loose. That's what he said. What? Not your lug nuts, your actual nut that holds your hub on your car onto the CV axle was loose. He said it was backed out about a turn or a turn and a half, and that's what was making that popping noise. And it got me wondering how many women or men, you know, get put in a situation like this. He did fix it. He tightened it up and stopped the popping noise, but he also went ahead and changed the ball joints, you know, and did that work that we had bought the parts for, because it needed new ball joints. Just because that model of that era of car, you cannot grease the front end and stuff, and they wear out. If you ever heard, you know, an early 2000 model Ford vehicle squeaking when it drives, it doesn't matter if it's a car or the Explorer or anything like that, you'll hear it squeaking because you can't grease the front end. You can't grease the contact points on it. They're made to not ever be greased. They're supposed to last a lifetime. But it made me wonder how many people get caught in that situation of you go in and get your tires changed, and next thing you know, you're standing there expecting, you know, $300 or $400 to get a new set of tires, and they've got you so panicked that, you know, oh God, I might spend another $500. Yes, go ahead and do the work type stuff. You know, a lot of people just went ahead and said, go ahead and do it. I'll figure out a way to pay it. That's the way a lot of people would have done it, because they're scared to death their front end's going to fall off their car while they're driving. It also put me in a mind thought of how many shops do this kind of crap. You know, I grew up at the tail end of the straight shift era, you know, the 5-speed vehicles that was in everything. You would hear horror stories of people putting sawdust in them so they'll run while they're selling it, and then eventually the transmission goes out in it. It brought me back to that because a lot of people, I don't want to say the word gullible, but just because a mechanic tells them, this is the problem. And the bad thing about this is they actually, it appears the shop that worked on it even said, look, it looks like somebody backed the nut off. Not the lug nuts. You have a nut that holds your CV axle in the front end of your car, in a front wheel drive car. They had backed it off a turn or two, and driving it that day had loosened it where it wasn't going to fall off the car. Don't get me wrong, but it would start popping and making a noise when you turn. Just enough. It took it about a couple miles, about 30, 40 miles, for it to start making this noise. Most people would be scared to death, they would have went ahead right then and paid for it. With the economy the way it is, you have these shops out here. I'm sure it's went on forever, but now you got to really be careful because these shops out here they're going to do crap like that just to try to get some money in their pocket. I'm sure if she would have took it in, because you have no way. Most people, if you take a vehicle, like you need your axles changed and all that. The only reason I did not do the ball joints, I did everything else on it, is because I didn't have the tools to get the ball, to press all this back together and to do the alignment. But most people, you take it to a shop and they work on it and they say, well, we fixed it. You don't know if they put new parts in it or not. Most people are not going to crawl under there and look and see if it's new parts. Just be careful if you're using mechanics. Go to someone who's good in your area, that has that you've known or something like that, or people highly recommend in your area, and check their work. When a mechanic tells you they've done something, they fixed something, if it's physically possible to look at it. Don't just take them for their word. This car hadn't gave us any problems as far as any of this popping and clicking until after we took it to this other shop and to get a set of tires put on it. Then all of a sudden it sounded like the whole front end was coming out of the car. So be careful. There's people out there that's going to scam you to try to get money. Who's to say if she'd have got him to do it that day, went ahead and changed her axles, who's to say he wouldn't just tighten that back up and they would have cleared that much money. There are people out there that does it. So be careful when you're using any type of business, especially when it comes to your automobiles, because we're in them a lot, we're in the vehicles a lot. You start hearing strange noises, you want to get it fixed, be sure you check their work. It doesn't take that much for them to do something like loosen a nut to make a noise, get you to come back and go to work on your car and make $400 or $500 profit. Well, everything's fixed on it now. Everything's good, everything's right on it. But that the mechanic that we took it to today, when he said that I hadn't told him nothing about it, and he drove it and heard it popping, and he instantly, tightened it up, drove it again, and that's when he said, yeah, these have been backed off. So be safe out there when you take your stuff to a mechanic. Don't just use anybody. Be sure you take it to somebody that's good, that's not going to rip you off, not going to cheat you. Stay safe out there in America. Keep your head on a swivel. Always be aware of your surroundings. Protect yourself and your family at all times. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button. Thank you to all who have subscribed. Everybody have a good day.